my cousin Anne, and Alice, her family goes back to the 1700s here in California. She's also part Ohlone Indian, was. Alice at death, prepared and admired. 1. The daughter bathes her mother's body in frankincense and orange oil, intermittent sprays of rose water as she washes the corpse. Dresses her in angel white, nails she paints an inoffensive pink. Hands crossed over the bland chest, fierce hair brushed. Then she holds her, kissing one cheek until the body stiffens. I must have been numb, she said. A large swath of silk draped into creamy folds, camellia flowers clipped, leaves, petals, circling, all whitening the vignette. The sun falling west. And at exactly sunset, they came to lift the body. 2. Look at me, unstirring. My daughter takes my picture at every angle. I cannot move, but I feel the sun move across my brow, a final kiss. I am 94 of the Ohlone, and now they've come for what I used to be. And this poem is about one of my favorite places in California, the Santa Lucia Preserve, which is 22,000 acres of a nature preserve, a few houses scattered within it. Santa Lucia morning for John Ashbery. The saint's blinded stare rests on the gold halo of light through a window, cupping as if to present the ethereal, a bowl of sunlight. She is a saint, that is to say, this summer day is mounting. Shall we mold these moments to happiness? We commence. As the bird does to build her nest, fix twigs and strings with her beak, push with her breast until the shape takes. What of hummingbird who trades one sage flower after flower? A diagonal trace, a lyric verse, and as in verse, the whole universe. It tosses stars as we do dreams, so easily. A quail covey marches the width of lawn, length of fence. They are a band of bandits. Through the low air, misty with insects. The horse on the hill wears blinders to shield his eyes from flies, ground squirrel his burrow. All creatures are like Lucia, saints, after all, longing to see, far in range and with clarity, lively, intact, the mountain, the widening path, held in a gaze closer than breeze on skin, a plate with sun. At Mass with my lover, God, and everyone. It is Easter. He and I will go to the monastery overlooking the sea. The sky is blue. The gardens we walk through will be moist and colorful, each flower bed hemmed in shells. Inside, the hidden nuns, extra tremulous with fervor, will still sing off key. We will approach the row of antique caned chairs nearest the altar, some stairs on our stylish backs, and take our seats. During Mass, my love will lean to understand the quiet priest with Spanish accent. And I will lean into him and take his hand, move my haunch that much closer, like a servile dog. Being closer is all I can believe God to be about. In the morning, having made love hard against the headboard, then fixing plans for church. After communion, we'll kneel on adobe tiles, his breath rich after drinking the blood wine. And what does he say in those silent prayers is all I will think about. Morning at Moore's Lake. By 8 a.m., the mist on the lake begins to fade, like a ghost exiting a theater. Quickly, slowly, the sun casts in. Air speckled with night dust and featherings, the occasional dragonfly stringing along morning's heat. The lake, a mirror of trees, clumps of trees, yellowing willows, bordering other realms. A cormorant propels the water's surface. At the dock, hops to join another, to observe the nothingness of the world before them. Black, beak to tail, he has not moved. The wet one holds her wings aloft, waggles tight in eastern sun. Her diaphanous span melting to brown, she continues thus. And I have gendered these birds with pen and notebook. Poncho over pajamas, shoes I slide on and off in the sand. The birds, an avian thought matrix. Her quarter turn, wings still spread, intent, drawing her body. So much patience and time. And yet, I see the watermark on the shore reads, the lake is lower than last year. That much. There's a flash of red on one cormorant's bill, and somewhere I hear the bullfrog croak, same as last year, meaningless, but I pretend it matters. Dusk. I come to swim alone in the pool by the ocean where he lived. The moon is a slipper in the bruised sky. I towel off in darkness and listen to the surf lullaby. The winter air stiffens me. I hurry to slip my father's sweater back on over bareness. His odor clings to the wool. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kimberly. Kimberly Nunes, and the second feature of the evening is Daniel Wolff, and I have to, his latest collection is entitled More Poems About Money, and of course that's a perennial topic for all of us, in one way or another. But I love this little critical commentary by someone whose name I don't recall, but an angry and ingenious collection that indicts global capitalism in a fury of wordplay, rhymes, squint-eyed sonnets, and puns. I'm not quite sure what a squint-eyed sonnet is, but I suspect it would be very, very enjoyable to hear. So Daniel has appeared in a lot of significant quote-unquote magazines, places of repute, and this is his recent collection is his fourth, and I'm looking forward to hearing his reflections on money, which is the root of many things, as we know. Daniel.
Thank you. I think squint-eyed sonnets is where my eyes squint when I say them. I think that's all that means.
You might want to raise that mic before you get going.
Okay. Easier said than done. This or this?
The twisties.
Yeah. Is that about as much as I can get? Does that sound good? All right. I know you guys can hear me. Marta, will you keep track of 20 minutes, kind of? Because otherwise, I could go on forever. And you won't like that. I'm glad I got a laugh somewhere over here just from the title, More Poems About Money, because it was meant to be slightly funny, and I kept trying to figure out why it was funny. I think it's because we think poetry is a high matter about sensitivity and feelings, and money is a crass matter about getting ahead and beating somebody, and the two shouldn't go together. And that's part of what interested me, was that I wanted to see if they could go together. The opening poem to this collection talks about this a little, if I can get it right, which I think I can. There can't be more poems about money because there haven't been any. Nothing deep or funny about a penny. It isn't even real. What people lose sleep over, fight to collect, hoard, squander, steal, is a promise. Inspect the coin more closely. It has no value, only stands for value. Gold, we're mostly told. What the teller hands over, the unpoetic teller, is a symbol, legal, tender. So my hope on that, thank you, Richard, for nodding your head. My hope on that was to say that there's something poetic about money. There's something that, as crass as it is, binds us together and is something we think about a bunch. And Kim, who did a great job, I saw, we're talking profits on the farm in one of those poems. So it does slip into poetry every once in a while. When I'm going to read tonight, the book's in 5 sections. The first one is called Boom, which is about when things are going well. And I was convinced that you could write poetry about it when I realized that they said we were living in an inflationary bubble, which strikes me as a place to start any poem if you can figure out how to do it. It's a great idea. And then in Bust, when things go bust, this book in 2007, 2008, when some of you recall there was a little trouble with the economy. Bust is when it all starts to fall apart. And one of the phrases that got me going about that was that if your mortgage went bad, it was said your house went underwater, which struck me as, again, a great thing for a poem somehow. So I'm going to read the last poem from that section, Bust, as an intro to the next section. It's called Depression, a Working Definition. And I think of it as a poem that a man or a woman is saying at the kitchen table, having looked through their accounts and their bills and thought, this isn't going to work. We're not going to get there. We aren't underwater. Not yet. But I can feel the tide rising and see our stuff slowly sliding away. The rug is wet. The dining room set is overdue. You stare at me across the table like I should do something. I do what I'm able to. But I can already tell tomorrow's work won't ever be enough. You say something about love. I don't think you know how badly we've been hurt. Here's our home. Here's the hole it's in. And here's the line where the ocean begins. If you guys are like me, it's very hard to understand a poem when it's read aloud. You're very brave to be here. Oh, well, good. I'm glad it was perfectly understandable. When I hear someone read, you or anyone, I kind of, I go, oh, I have really nice glasses she's wearing. And, 2 lines have gone by and I missed the thing. So I'm going to read this one again in case any of you are bad like me. Depression, a working definition. We aren't underwater, not yet. But I can feel the tide rising and see our stuff slowly sliding away. The rug is wet. The dining room set is overdue. You stare at me across the table like I should do something. I do what I'm able to. But I can already tell tomorrow's work won't ever be enough. You say something about love. I don't think you know how badly we've been hurt. Here's our home. Here's the hole it's in. And here's the line where the ocean begins. And that is probably what they mean by a squint-eyed sonnet, because it is a sonnet. It's 14 lines that rhyme with a couplet at the end. But hopefully...
You have to squint to see it.
To see that, right. Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully you don't notice. So after boom and bust, the next section is called Aftermath, which is, I think, what we're sort of in now, which is there's no great dramatic economic moment going on now, but everyone's trying to cope. And after that kind of poem where things have gone all to hell, people try to figure out how you keep going. And this poem comes kind of out of the end of Moby Dick. If you remember, the whale hits the ship and all civilization is lost. This is like, the crash. And there's just Ishmael to tell the tale. He's floating along. So in the aftermath, peace. Like the ocean after a whale. The slight crease where... That's my phone, I'm sorry. Let me start again. In the aftermath, peace. Like the ocean after a whale. The slight crease where a house went under, a business failed. And here, clinging to man-shaped debris, an angel winged with giant waves. He or she was brave or wasn't. Now awaits recovery. Meanwhile, a shark in a three-piece suit plays with a ragged cut of meat. What's lost is only lost to view. It could be raised. It could all be raised, but at what cost? And why would we sign on again when the beast is still at sea? Why would we try to make it work again if the threat is still there? Why would we try to make our money and make a go of it when we keep getting screwed? Again, in that quote where it says I'm bad about capitalism, or as you said briefly, crapitalism, which I think is very good. I think it's my anger at the idea that there's a certain large group of people who can't get ahead, who, because of the way the system's set up, are not going to succeed. So, do we need that one again, or are we good? We're good? Good, okay. So people try to put things back together, and this is called dredge recovery. It comes from, on the Hudson River, which is where I live, the General Electric put PCBs in the water for many, many years. PCBs were a byproduct of insulating wire, and they're carcinogenic. And General Electric argues nobody told us not to. But anyway, there's a lot in there, and all the striped bass have it. And they've decided the thing to do is to try to dredge it out. And it struck me as an example of how we keep trying to fix things and screw them up. And it becomes part of the economy, in fact, is the fixing of things that we've screwed up, which we will then screw up again. Anyway, dredge recovery. You guys know what a dredge is. It's a big, like, steam shovel on a barge, typically, right? Like a poem? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Could be. The big dredge dips its head and mucks in the underwater, then bends the horizon, straining to lift, and breaking the surface, weeps. We fuck things up. It's what we do. And having done so, we fuck them again. That bucket contains the stinking remains of 1,000 previous fixes. Hear how the scavenger cries with delight as the neck of the crane thrusts at the sky. Watch as it drops its toxic load into the patient, shuddering barge. And how does the barge deliver its cargo? As garbage, to cover our other blunders. Each brave generation has to dig out from under. All heaven is built on fill. Again, we good? You're going to signal to me if we got to do it again. Thank you, thank you. Always good to have a fan. And so how do I talk about the next one? I guess the next one is just that we keep going, even when we're fucking things up over and over again. That we keep somehow pushing forward. It's called Tug into the Market. And I think it's self-explanatory. The screw of a tug stirs the night, thrums the chest like a heart in blood. Does it fight? Yes. Its iron mass displaces fear, if fear is a kind of tide. Inside its cabin, a wakeful captain compares the bright ideal of charts with what he sees outside. The diesel pushes goods to port, and whether or not it turns a profit, turns away, back into the market. Hear the hollow chest. Questions? Comments? No? Okay. Read that one again? Okay. I will. I will. Hold on one second. I will. Hold on. Tug into the market. The screw of a tug stirs the night, thrums the chest like a heart in blood. Does it fight? Yes. Its iron mass displaces fear, if fear is a kind of tide. Inside its cabin, a wakeful captain compares the bright ideal of charts with what he sees outside. The diesel pushes goods to port, and whether or not it turns a profit, turns away, back into the market. Hear the hollow chest. So in the first poem, I think, out of this series, I talked about the aftermath being like peace, when things are sort of calm and you're making a little money and maybe things are all right. If economic ups and downs are wars, the aftermath is a kind of peace. And this is trying to do, it's called Peace, a working definition. It's trying to describe that. Is that my 20 minutes up? No. Okay. Okay, just checking. Halftime. Good. Where's the band? So peace, a working definition. Is this then peace? Enough cash to rent a place on earth? It's all right. I'll start again. Is it quiet?
Start again.
I will. 1 sec.
That's it.
You good?
Yep.
Okay. I'll ask you later what that was an alarm for. Peace, a working definition. Is this then peace? Enough cash to rent a place on earth and eat? Out on the street, it's dusk. The family sits on a stoop, the mother's laughter soft as light. She's lived to see the myth collapse. Now she watches her children play under trees she never planted. I won't read that one again. I hope it makes sense. So, as I'm moving along through this, I'm trying to figure out why us human beings organize ourselves this way, why the economy works this way. And there's a poem called An Invasive Species that is a little bit like, as I look at it, a little bit like we fuck things up. It's the same general message, I think. We are an invasive species, brazen as part of our occupation, craven without knowing why. See these cleared lots where the beach plum has been plowed under? Someone will enclose that light, force the sand to stay outside, make sure the air's conditioned. Any space a potential site, given poured concrete, given plywood beams. And all we need to sustain our dream is a tie-in back to the main. See the turtle climb the beach, her shell a kind of solar panel? She lays her eggs just up from the harbor so her young will be able to reach the water and start all over again. Even when we interrupt, blind, they bump foundations. No one needs to teach these tricks. No one winds these clocks. As long as sun has heated rock, we've been an invasive species. I had a conversation last night with a guy we were staying with where he said, I've got a great new project, and he took out a blueprint and he said, we're going to build a big electrical charging plant here for trucks and cars. And he said, these little circles here are the 150 oaks that we cut down to make sure it would work, to clear the space for it. And it's that sense of an invasive species, that in order to progress as we think, we keep fucking things up. We keep destroying things. There's a bright side to that, but I'm not sure it's in this book. So how am I on 20 minutes, Marna?
5 minutes.
I got 5 minutes more?
Great.
Good, thank you. No, I'll do my bit. To me, this idea of turning a profit and trying to, being an invasive species carries over into matters romantic and sexual. In that there's a capitalism to romance too, it seems to me, that is the exploitation often of one person or the other. I was struck in your poem, Kim, about the idea that you're in church and what you're really thinking about is what your lover's thinking about. There's that kind of power dynamic that's going on, I think, a lot of the time. And it's related to money, I think. It's similar in a way to what am I worth?
There's no poetry in money.
Right, exactly. That's why I'm up here reading it. So this is a poem about a woman who has just broken up with one man and almost immediately found another. And it's called Prophet 2. She got bored with Steady and broke it off. The same weekend, crazy, she hooked up with another, and he yanked her skyward, lips still puffy. In theory, we can fight back. In theory, our bodies aren't sold at market, are greater than mere profit. In theory, she might break free, but not on this winter beach where the wind clips foam from the tops of waves like stock. Not in the constant screech of sand on sand. No one's that brave. Inside, at a greasy counter, an old woman cuts in front of her, orders the dinner special to go, then pays with a plastic card. No, she's been taught to believe in abundance. The promised reprieve of sweat-stained sheets, the up and down as revolution. What is this meat, the old one asks, like she might be served up next. The story is the same in all the glossies. Soon there will be no more fish in the sea. I'm going to do that one again so that I understand it. Never mind you. I don't mean never mind you. There's always, you break up with someone, there are always more fish in the sea. There is eternal abundance, always in matters of romance, theoretically, as well as in matters of money. this woman, to my understanding, was sort of caught up in that. Let's keep going. Let's do the next one. Or I don't know. I don't know how much she was running it or she was caught in it like a fish. She got bored with steady and broke it off. That same weekend, crazy, she hooked up with another, and he yanked her skyward, lips still puffy. In theory, we can fight back. In theory, our bodies aren't sold at market, are greater than mere profit. In theory, she might break free, but not on this winter beach, where the wind clips foam from the tops of waves like stock. Not in the constant screech of sand on sand. No one's that brave. Inside at a greasy counter, an old woman cuts in front of her, orders the dinner special to go, then pays with a plastic card. No, she's been taught to believe in abundance, the promised reprieve of sweat-stained sheets, the up and down as revolution. What is this meat, the old one asks, like she might be served up next? The story is the same in all the glossies. Soon there will be no more fish in the sea. Let me do one more, and then I will be done. And thank you for your patience and understanding. This is called The Dismal Science, which is what we talk about economics as, the dismal science. I don't think I need to explain this. After a century and a half of chopping back beach grass and leveling dunes, the lifeguard leaves at 5. In her place, she posts a sign written in a common tongue: swim at your own risk. Everyone understands that the sun will set in the west, that our money is counted in dollars, that the sea is not a woman, that each breath is a game of chance. That's why the swimmer who wades in the dark knows there's no one to hear his cry. That's why the forces that drag him down have no color or name. Maybe the ocean follows rules, but it's a dismal science, barely known. It takes 2 days till the body's found in the shallows, just off the casino. I thank you very much.
Daniel Wolff, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, the aspect of repeating lines reminded me that there used to be a poet in New York years ago, John Giorno, that I saw on a few occasions. And every line that he wrote, he would repeat it. He would be a short break. He would repeat the line. And it was very haunting. And I think it's even more effective to do the whole poem because, that, for example, the last poem you repeated, I didn't know I had heard it. It was like echoes. I mean, the chronological momentum totally broke up in a very interesting way. So I appreciate adding a new element to our poetic delectation. Very nice, very nice. So we're going to take a 5, 6, 7, 8 minute break, and then we'll have the open mic session. And if you haven't signed up already, you still have the chance to do it.
song. He
Oh,
gave me a
you
couple
want
of
me to
books of his.
introduce you?
One from the 70s, and another one's a collection.
Okay.
And I was reading.
Well, we're not really part of the open.
Huh?
We're not really part of the open mic.
Well, you may not be. I'm part of the open. Okay, I'll go ahead and wait. Don't introduce me. Forget it, Jerry.
What?
Don't listen to a word he says.
No. Michael is one of the first poets I met here in I'm from here in San Francisco, native San Franciscan. But I met Michael at Minnie's Can Do up on Fillmore Street in Pine. So it's long gone now. You remember Minnie's Can Do?
Oh, come on.
You know, yeah.
You're getting old, but come on.
And David Alexander, what was his name? Omar Khayyam played the piano there. And it was the first regular open series that I used to go to. And I met Michael and several other poets there. But anyway, so I followed Michael's writing all these years, right? So, and you know, and he I don't know what it is, like a kind of use of language that's very poetic and symbolic and blah 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 blah. But it's interesting to follow a person's career, you know, over many decades, you know, and see how they, you know, they stick to their guns and you know, do what they do, you know. So anyway, okay, Michael.
Enough said. Well, I'll give these poems a single reading, but three little short things. This is entitled Behind the Eight Ball Celebrating a Book. Having definitively resolved the perennial question, who wrote the Book of Love? I booked passage on a sinking ship. I still yearned for a sumptuous silence, a cool, refreshing rain that sizzled on the tarmac as it fell. Your incendiary nakedness under a thin sheet, like a fever. Why did I break the ice? Why was I broke? Why did I nestle like a broken wing behind the eight balls' polished thunder? Yeah, man. This is called The Fiddle on Fire. I was born wearing a shabby shirt, but God, the gorgeous trousers. I wore a battered fedora, too, grateful it wasn't a helmet or crown. But I'm not a reliable witness. I can't spit as far as my shoe. My hunger cracked the crystal sea, but the shards are sirens of nothingness. My left eye can hardly see. Do you prefer a ballpoint pen or a gorgeous feather dipped in ink and blood? I had to ask. I want you to be happy. And I will conclude with this entitled Street Theology, which is also the name of a collection of poetry that I have. It's Street Theology. I envy God's perfect hair, not her tiara. My dog has a dog. I'm sitting pretty. Thanks.
So we'll get to the open mic next. This is a poem I wrote for Eric called The Beauty. Let's see, I think I need my glasses. Oh, here they are. Yeah, I knew Michael. He was one of the first poets I met in regular series we used to go to every month. Every week. Was it every week, Michael? What? minis readings of that every week or something. But it was one of the first really open things. Okay. Anyway, it's called The Beauty of the Bird in Beckett Bookstore for Eric. And not just to sell books, though we need books more than ever. Something real we can hold on to in this digital apocalypse. But also to create community, connection, and civic pride. And to play a part in a creative community is its own reward, its own economy, its own human destiny. The miracle is you don't need a jillion people to keep it real. A small, intimate audience will do. And jazz, real jazz, the word itself, has always meant freedom, the voice of the underground that sprang from the source, even from beyond the gigs where all musicians go to play eternally. Thank heaven for bookstores everywhere, sacred temples of free speech, of universal learning and teaching, the real university, centers of every subject of interest on earth, fiction or nonfiction, haven for ancient wisdom and culture in the present, and just plain old entertainment, sanctuary of historical knowledge and collective memory, nourishing and seeding the arts and sciences for the reading public, refuge for humanity, tolerance and civil liberty, truth and justice, transcending party politics or class, race or gender identity, rich or poor, and always with an open door policy for strangers and wandering poets, for poetry, music, and social communion, fueling the imagination of the people's dreams, a literature of life and of love for sale. But it takes showing up every day in the flesh, rain or shine, and manning the counter with a counterculture yet conservative approach to commerce, one-on-one with the customer, with the joy, humor, and vision that draws people together in solidarity and hope from all different walks of life to exchange new ideas and keep the conversation going. And remember, when the mob starts burning books, next they'll burn people, like they did when they burned the library at Alexandria. But what is written in the very act of writing itself cannot be forgotten. It's called history. If books be the treasure of our heritage and the record of our humanity, I say, right on. Yeah, right. Okay. Andrea, no.
Okay. Have a reading from a device here.
Why don't you
Yeah.
put it here? Can you get?
You said you might want to angle it a little bit.
Well, why don't you
Should
move
I
it to the center?
move
Yeah.
over here then? Okay. Yeah.
You get it? Can we get it a little lower so it's, you can see your face better?
Sure, we'll do that. This will come down a little bit. Why don't we go off to the side a little bit like this? And we'll come around like this, and we'll go around like that.
I'm fine. I think.
You got all the room in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, I have to find.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, you need
Oh, here we go.
piece you're gonna make.
Yeah, I got. Yeah.
Just tighten
There
this
it
up so
is.
it doesn't swing a lot.
All right.
You can do the swinging.
Okay.
That's tight. Let's see. Is that gonna? Looks like a pretty good angle.
Okay.
Y'all can
Trying
see.
to. Is this good? Is this? How is this?
Somebody left the fan on. Now I told you all.
This good? Hi, everyone. I'm going to be reading a couple of poems from a book of poems by Emily Keeler called Dark Days and a Black Dog. Not so easy, a puppy. Yet we walk into beauty so often, igniting the play from which I cannot look away. Like the flickering fire, I never tire of looking at it day after day. Not so easy, a puppy. But we walk into the parks full of, oh, look, such beautiful birds and leaves and sky and light, and this dog, and that one with the long legs. Or on the beach with the 5 o'clock sudden sunset, near the naked beach with the man who doesn't care if he's naked on the wrong one. The drama of the bank of clouds. It's one way at 4:30, and after a chase and a dog bite, a whole different thing. Not so easy, my puppy. My feet. My dogs are barking. I smile. I've made a joke. It's the middle of the night and 2 aspirins later. His dark eyes are almost unseen in his black face. On the bed, he sits opposite, separate from me, staring at me darkly because those are his only looks. It's another day, but up too early, up as if it was 5:30, but it's 4:30. The time change, 1 extra hour, but boy, does that hour make the winter feel welcome. In the morning, we talked of the dog's gimlet eye. And gimlets, what were they? And agreeing that his eyes were not as big, or it must be said, soft and expressive as our last dog Freddie's were. We actually agreed. And then I was trying to remember gimlets, what they were. I asked, were they something tart and sweet and wonderful that my parents had in the house only for cocktail parties? First, he said Rose's lime juice, because that is what is used for gimlets. And he said, was it Tom Collins I was thinking of? And that was right. And that's how things stand now. Dehydrated. What changed while we were gone? Is this what travel is? To come home and see what has happened? The Thai Spice, is that the name? Has new bells under their awning now, very fetching. The gift shop closed next door to it, though my husband said I hadn't noticed, but it closed before we left. The furniture store is now a designer sample store. I saw these changes in the neighborhood on the walk at 1:30 in the morning with the dog. He had not been walking in the neighborhood since we locked him down at the kennel. He was walking like a just-released prisoner, glazed in the eyes and tentative in the physical. He was not pulling, thrilled by the smells, reading the newspaper of the street, his usual approach. His appetite had been thwarted, and he was not himself. He had been gentled, but in a bad way. We dodged the closers in front of the bars, laughing loudly and hugging, saying how much they loved each other and don't be a stranger, and hailing the cruising cabs. There were leaves blowing in the next season's breeze, harbinger of the warm fall, reminding me of our travels, where the plane trees soften the look of both tiny town squares and wide city streets. Here, they are new, not imposing as they are there, but they still release their leaves to the air and show the movement. My dog sniffed. We both did. The breeze picked up the last whiff of the restaurants and some of the bay. What else? Our tree in front on the street was not watered when we were gone, and the lower leaves died. The garden was dry. I noticed when we walked through with our bags, all the pots struggling to keep going. I thought, we've been dehydrated too. My husband is not himself either. His mind is careening, trying to get purchase. For him, it was too slippery and suspenseful what we did. We almost missed a train, and then we missed one. We missed 2 airplanes, we were lost and hot, and asked to leave from a tapas restaurant, the one from the New York Times. We ended up, by accident, under the full moon in a most beautiful town, Norborne. But it was an accident, not in the plans, and that was difficult for him. We went looking for one restaurant there on the advice of the woman who owned the little hotel and ended at another, which was perfect, in the late-night summer air next to the church under those beautiful string lights. But it was the wrong one, and he was left thinking that there may have been one better. Oh, we've laughed about it. How slow the trains were, how we'll never take another, even to Menlo Park. And how he could have broken his neck or an arm getting the luggage down from the high-up shelf in the teeny-tiny compartment. How long the fucking train was, and that we had to walk to the end of it to get on. Was it over 20 cars? I think so. How it took 12 hours from Barcelona to Geneva, even though it's a distance from here to Fresno. How excited we were for the overnight train with the club car and the restaurant and the some-like-it hot bunk beds, and how sick-making it really was for him, and how he could have slit his throat trying to shave in that little bathroom in the middle of the night where he was freshening up, since sleeping was not an option, with the chug-a-chug of the sleeping car. Laughing is better. This is a vacation we are taking now, a vacation in retrospect. The huge plum tree we see from the top in the kitchen and below from the bathroom has been trimmed into a perfect canopy, its broken limbs sawed off and taken away. The datura next to it has also been attended to and is blooming yellow trumpets like they do in Spain, wildly, with abandon, next to browning leaves.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Brett Benson.
Before Brett starts, let me say that editor will be actually. Was that material from?
Yeah.
Okay, from the. Can you,
Oh, yes.
rather than me butcher it? Thank you.
The book is a collection of linked poems, kind of a collection that reveals a story, more or less. The book by Emily Keeler is called Dark Days and a Black Dog, and I'm going to be reading it here Thursday evening, the 12th of January.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Andrea. Yeah.
Thank you.
So do put that on your calendar. All right, Brett Benson.
Can you hear me okay?
I think so.
All right, cool. Okay, the first one is called Evening Reflections. You owe nothing to any person at the expense of your own best sense of well-being and sense of self-worth. Just get quiet enough to rest everything in your being, your spirit, that introspection which bypasses all of the fog and shadows, the pain and blurry vision, and seemingly endless darkness. We have been granted existence for an undetermined amount of time. Thus, when this form feels fragile or challenging or aggressive or insecure, reach for your rock, your sword, your lion tamer, your inner fortress. You are granted permission to return to the infinite stillness anytime you wish. The kingdom, they call it, is within, and so is the calm presence of eternity. That's the first one. And the second one is called The Resurrection of Prometheus's Torch, a Perennial Dialogue in Modern Times. Downward ascent from the mountaintops, rushing with a great speed, as though a sacred item had been taken from its sublime altar, a perennial torch, the light of human consciousness in hand, he runs with a wild ferocity in his eyes, a knowing of an essential belief what is at stake if his red flower is made extinguished. Humanity has lost its way, as if it screamed, darkness in nearly every corner, filling more hearts day by day. For the being had grown cold and brutish, a savagery forming amid the dogmatic droves, refusals to acknowledge basic equal life existing in one another, ending in mutually assured destruction. Thy neighbor did not worship or obey my God, my doctrine, the right way of living. Thus I closed all of my fortified self off to them. Thus I am superior. Thus the universe grants permission to destroy anything opposed to my very sense of being. What madness, what lunacy, a sickness in need of a sustained cure, every mind claiming the right to return to bestial breath and vibrations. When paradise is based on the condition of allegiance to a deity and condemnation of the other, who possesses a varied ultimate reality is ever present, the form of current limitation, in all of its flawed features, blasts trumpets and horns for generational warfare, binary minds, and impenetrable state of waves to bypass. Behold, he, the descendant of Prometheus, great courage, foresaw the crisis, and thus ran till the fire from his talisman spread to his feet, a flaming meteor headed to the collision with the ape-like chest beats of those souls whose unison with past dogma would not be easily broken or even altered in the slightest measure of changing wavelengths. Though they may not be evil incarnate, the horror show of willingness to embrace ideology to justify the dehumanization of others in the false god claim of self-preservation was before, is thus now, and shall always be evil in its most malevolent creation. A fury unbound, a speed of the utmost urgency, light on his feet, yet clawing past the formidable terrain. Time ticked with the loudest of strikes, as if fate gave one and only one hope to make the shift a successful revelation. So make it happen. We're all waiting. We're all hoping that we can bypass this one day at a time.
Oh, thanks, Brett. And David Hutchinson.
Well, thanks, everybody. I probably have more to read than I have time for.
Well, then make more time.
Interesting suggestion. This one's called the Hollow River. A soft elude of demarcations with and of loss, remembered along as terms of life, not empty paths to beauty, gliding in refraction of a shadow of slow emotion, giving way to sudden glints that tear through tenuous fabrics in the air that Light swims from there, away, with, and far.
Okay, that's it.
Could be. This one's called a declination. Presently hosting as an inspiration that refuses to betray the meant by saying. Here lies a frozen promise leaking droplets, always folded by egress from tense apex. Whither dahlias go in the lowering sun, that grew tired for a while, so rests and elsewhere's visions of the lasting days at rest. The skin as textured apparitions that view language of all signs, of welcome impositions through the walls, entertaining in the minds. Spirit horses running with whispered forms of neigh that glance at starlight's reach as they part the air of waves. Floating azimuths of hurried movements stalled, resorting to the simpler motions of finding that has gone. Changes arrive and leave, and not much can be done, unless most not forget themselves with time in the beauty baskets that we weave. And I have one more poem. I was just going to leave it here, though. So this is some prose from my second book, my first novel. It's called...
Read the whole novel.
No, I won't. See? It's more than 2 pages, sir.
Let's hear some of it.
Can I say the title of it? It's called The Jealousy of Admiration. No, it's called Scissors of the Forge, The Jealousy of Admiration, or the inverse. The child had a friend on who lived in a corner house on the street below. The friend's father had built him a fort in a tree, this the favorite secret hideout for them, as they imagined no person below could even discern the hidden structure through the branches and leaves. Up in the tree, they played with blonde skirt dolls and eunuch boyfriends without even knowing any difference from adults at large. The child often claimed that adults were aliens sent from outer space for kids to laugh upon, without scorn, but an amused and defiant pleasantry, unperturbed. The friend agreed, only saying, "Well, my dad built our fort, so." The child might reply, "Well, if there were no adults, we might not need one." So when they dangled the dolls over the side of the deck to dangle on rope ladders in great feats of daring and skill, they never imagined heroic battles or crusades, only competitive actions such as the Olympics or World Championships. The young friend read comic books, but the child never got much from such drivel. She sometimes thumbed through Pirrell's graphic novels, but even those left her cold. She hoped they never took the place of just words. One time she suggested to her friend, "I have an idea. Why would he spend our allowance on a wig and we can trade clothes? Then we could return home when the streetlights come on as body doubles or stuntmen and see if our adults notice. I feel stunted sometimes. We're short, makes me mad." So this they did. They walked downtown one day down the main street, across the railroad tracks. The friend paused to kneel down for a discarded copper penny that had been flattened into a curved disc. They then entered the only genuine dime store left in any town in 5 counties. As usual, one of the clerks assumed they were there to shoplift and followed them around. The child accepted her decision, as she had once helped herself to a case of big red chewing gum for no reason without getting caught. Neither the adult or child ever mentioned her guilt, so she reckoned getting followed around a store every dang time was suitable justice. The friend never knew about the heist, but shared a good portion of the loot. The child felt that was fine, and she had immense fondness for the lad and hoped never to incriminate him. That would be wrong, her mother said after the child told her. She accepted some gum as well, made the child pick up extra dog poop for a month in exchange for her crime. The child willfully accepted her fate, free of any desire for vengeance. So they purchased the wig and that evening swapped clothes except their undergarments. Then each made their way down separately and with attempts at furtive so as to escape notice. The friend walked to the child's house in the ill-fitting girl's clothes and wig. He opened the door and walked inside to plop down on the sofa to watch television. He rarely did this before dinner, so Anon looked up a bit, puzzled from the kitchen to see her kid changing channels that she knew were either news or infomercials. Are you looking for a new blender or rotisserie over there, or suddenly interested in politics? Asked Anon. I have to go, said the friend in a mock-high voice, even though the child's was lower than his, running for the door. Anon understood then and hoped the dog pooped a lot the next few weeks. The child had done a similar routine at the friend's house. As his mother walked in the family room, though, and asked, "Whatever are you doing watching the news, child?" she replied, "I don't much enjoy your cooking, Mother. I think the current activities overseas are inducing instability in the futures markets as well. We might need to diversify your portfolio in favor of agricultural investments over dry pot roast." The friend's mother stepped to the phone despite the quality of her impression as spot on, accepting the content. She never budged until Anon asked to speak with her. As she passed her friend, she grabbed the wig and donned over her own hair. She wore it until she went to bed, placing it on the lamp after she turned off the light. She feared no demons by they, man or woman or spectrum. She considered drawing an awful mustache on the shade, but didn't want to be stuck with a shovel for 4 months.
Thank you. And Alan Harris.
Groucho was a sociopath who would do anything to enrich himself, including seducing the pathetically dense and uptight Margaret Dumont in film after film in order to avail himself of her considerable wealth. Chico was a man whose contempt for the human race, especially those members of it who were better off than him, became increasingly more difficult to disguise as time went on. Zeppo was a blank slate, completely devoid of personality, and whether this was purposeful, giving the audience a stand-in or a Zen vessel onto which they could project whatever thoughts or feelings they had, or simply the result of a complete lack of acting talent or screen presence, is still the stuff of fervent debate. And Harpo was the embodiment of the human id, a mass of unconscious psychic energy that worked only to satisfy basic urges, needs, and desires, unchecked, unhinged, unstable, a bringer of chaos, and a compulsive sexual assaulter. Abbott was a control freak with a predatory nature, while Costello was his incessant prey, dumb, perpetually confused, and easily dominated. Martin was someone who had no compunction whatsoever about using his charm, talent, and good looks to seduce, swindle, and manipulate, perfectly willing to put up with and even encourage the insufferable and at times quite frightening personality of the man-child Lewis, as long as he got what he wanted from him. Lucy was all of the above and more, a whirling dervish of selfishness and bitterness, whose fierce determination to become a part of the ambiguous entity known as show business, without ever doing any of the hard work required to achieve such a goal, spoke to her delusional nature and led to shocking acts of self-destruction, as well as the commission of crimes such as breaking and entering and kidnapping, all the while remaining in a tempestuous relationship with the nightclub singer Ricky, who was possessed of a volcanic temperament that grew out of a tenuous sense of his own constantly threatened manhood. And the Three Stooges were a delivery system for sadomasochism, an entertainment predicated entirely on the infliction of physical pain and psychic cruelty by the psychotic Moe, whose adorable mop top belied an obsession with subjugation and a complete lack of impulse control, on deeply damaged Larry, clearly suffering from some form of battered spouse syndrome, and Curly, whose demeanor suggested that of a mental patient who, unbeknownst to the doctors and nurses in charge of his care, has stopped taking his medication. The Stooges were, to their credit, the most honestly dysfunctional of their contemporaries, stripping away any pretext of morality, any veneer of sophistication, any trace whatsoever of recognizable humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of comedy. Thank you. I'm watching myself on video, reading some crap that I wrote, and I'm trying really hard to imagine that the person I am watching in the video is someone other than me, so that I can then judge this person objectively. But unfortunately, I appear to have done such a good job of convincing myself that the person in the video is someone else. I have so successfully crafted a detached, dispassionate, impersonal point of view from which I can judge this person that I am watching in the video, that I have accidentally called into question my whole sense of self, my whole conception of my own identity, of who I am and what I represent in the world and beyond. Because if I am, in fact, not the person in the video, then maybe I am also not the person sitting here at this keyboard writing this piece, which means that at the moment, I am, for all intents and purposes, a person without an identity. And while I have lost my way many times in the past, been befuddled and flummoxed and discombobulated and unglued and unscrewed and unzipped and mixed up and fouled up and shook up and spaced out and out to lunch and punchy and punch drunk and slap happy and shot to pieces and glassy-eyed, this that I am experiencing right now, this is something else completely, an ethereal emptiness that makes me doubt my own actuality. Truly a crisis of the existential variety, and one from which I see no path forward. The only thing that I could think of to do is to write about it. And that's what I'm doing. Writing about it. At least, I think it's me. I think I'm the one writing about it. Well, someone is writing about it. The words are appearing on the screen. I'm reading them right now. And you know what I just realized as I'm reading these words? This piece has gotten really meta. Somehow it has degenerated into this thing that is completely about itself. I have become trapped in a cycle of self-perpetuating self-reference, and I haven't a clue as to how to advance beyond it, which means that I have no idea how to come up with an ending. And I'm gonna have to end it soon. You only get a certain amount of time at these open mics. Most of them only give you 5 minutes. And while there are some open mics that are more freeform, allowing you as much time as you want, even they have their limits. You can't just continue reading indefinitely because you can't come up with an ending to your piece. The open mic has to end sometime. People have to leave. They have lives to live beyond the open mic. They have spouses and or children to get home to, pets to feed and or walk. They have to get some sleep so that they will be reasonably awake when they go to their jobs in the morning. So I have to figure out how to break this cycle and come up with an ending to this piece before the entire local economy collapses because everyone is falling asleep at their jobs. And I suppose I could just stop, just force an ending. And while that would not be artistically satisfying, as I prefer to let my pieces take an organic route to their own endings, that does not appear to be an option here. This piece has become like a virus. The longer it lasts, the more powerful it becomes. So someone, me, is going to have to do something. And it could get ugly. We are in uncharted territory here. So I suggest that you strap yourselves in and prepare for the worst, because this piece is going to end right here and right now, one way or the other, regardless of the consequences. And may God have mercy on our souls.
Could you do that again?
Oh, that was a...
Okay, Claire. Claire, only you could follow that. Right? Hey, man. Oh, man.
Okay, where should I stand? Is this good? That's pretty good.
You know, you might angle that a little bit towards you. It seems to be pointing off the other direction, not so much up and down as left and right. Maybe I'll come up there. I mean, stop ignoring my job. Do you know I get paid for this? Not enough.
Not enough. That's
But if you were here, it would be great. But since you're over there, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this?
You get overtime.
ah, look at that.
Magic, right? Anybody could do this.
Okay,
Mostly it's me.
so this piece, I've never understood this piece. I didn't understand it while I was writing it, and a friend today was asking me what I was going to read, and she's like, "Oh, well, what's your piece about?" And I said, "I don't know." But the reason why I read it and the reason why I submit it is when I wrote it all those years ago, I read it to my psychiatrist at the time. And my psychiatrist said, "Oh my God, that's an example of all the progress you're making." So this piece should be an example of my progress to sanity. And I don't know what, maybe you can tell me what it means. I don't know. Yeah. Burning rubber. I stand there shaking in my wet sneakers. My soggy socks are soaking my feet, making them soft and vulnerable. Get out, a voice, my voice, tells me, and then more gently, lift one foot over the edge. I look down, all the colors, the churning geometric patterns, the surrealistic images part like curtains, and I can see where I am and what I'm doing. I'm standing fully clothed in a bathtub, my bathtub. I must have wanted to take a shower, but something has gone wrong. The water only reaches an inch or two past my ankles, but there's enough so a yellow rubber duck is bobbing merrily along. I step on it, smashing it into the bottom of the tub, drowning it and crushing it at the same time. But when I remove my foot, it pops right up, unscathed, its face gleeful. Feeling desperate, I do it several times. A voice, my voice, rescues me. Get out, it pleads. It sounds as despairing as I feel. I find myself in the kitchen, sitting in a puddle I've made on the linoleum. I'm staring into the oven. The duck sits on the lower rack, its expression unchanged. They say that a watch pot never boils, but as the kitchen fills with black plumes and the smoke detector screams, I watch the duck's demise. I watch it through veils of color and explosions and decapitations and disembowelments and regurgitations and defecations. They dance before my eyes as the rubber blackens and drips and sizzles and splats. My breathing calms and my pulse slows and the veils part. I turn off the oven and go upstairs to change my shoes and socks. Sanity? You're making progress. I'm making progress. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Where's my jacket?
Well, we're gonna go.
You guys, seriously, you guys could, you'd be the type of thing that I know a lot of people say, this is a can't miss event. You see what you got, no, really. No,
You really know how to sell it.
no, I mean, I'm serious, I mean,
He's
this
planning on selling tickets out of the trunk of his car. And
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not telling you guys. And it's,
no.
And
It'd be-
it's
seriously.
keeping all the money.
I'm down with it.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
good, no, I have to get that.
That was
Well,
fun, Dave.
I think we got it.
It's great, Alan.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. Yeah, and take care. I can give you my card.
Oh, a card, oh, man, you're way ahead of the curve. Oh, yeah.
That was
You left a mess.
Professional.
Can I help? You can give me the stuff. Oh yeah, now it's actually getting a little bit worse. So it's actually better if I. Okay. Here, walk this
Had a
over
friend
here.
who's been depressed recently, I said,
Well, here, let me
catch
give
you
that.
tonight
Let me give you
with a
something.
cure. I mean, seriously.
Thank you.
There's nothing to do with it outside.
So you don't know when yet.
Jerry, take care, okay?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Yeah,
All right.
no,
March,
take care of yourself.
March, I'm gonna get done soon. March.
Yeah, this is great. I'm definitely gonna.
Can we have something? Let's see.
It's great to be
Well,
back
you
here
know,
doing live,
everybody's
reading live.
Step around. I'll use a vacuum.
Yeah, the online
No,
stuff
I'm gonna
is
use a
starting
vacuum.
to
Really,
bother
there's no
me.
way.
come back see what
Yeah.
here. You know?
Yeah,
That's right.
just don't
It's
step-
interesting,
don't
you know,
try
people
to
from all over the
cut
world,
perfect
you know,
by stepping in.
coming
Just
into
let
these
it go.
things.
I'm gonna use it.
Anyway,
I'm gonna use
take
it.
care.
Right.
All right.
No,
Good night.
there's nothing like a great jaundiced take on reality. I mean, hello, come on.
Right.
Okay.
That's very
That's cool.
And of course, the Three
There
Stooges.
you go.
I'm always telling my girlfriend, "Well, Three Stooges, give me a chance."
Thank you so much.
My whole
Thank
band
you.
loved them.
No,
I
you're fair.
grew up in New York and Europe, and they were like the heroes, the working class. Come on, the Three Stooges, man. They're the only people telling the truth in the movies, you know.
I mean, they're, you know, in their own way, there was a lot more honesty with them than.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
the
is
big,
kinda
you know,
scary,
The
you know.
society dinners, and they start throwing cake. You know, the whole. Yeah, it's like wow.
Yeah, so you can come back.
Oh,
He was a psychopath.
no, of course.
Oh my
Hey,
God.
it's the commentary on American life. What else can you do?
Take care.
Oh man, thanks.
All right. Great, Alan. Glad you called. Glad you came.
Oh yeah.
All right. See ya.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. That's pretty funny. Those. Oh, I gotta stop the streaming and stuff like that.
Okay.
Let's see. I always forget to hit all the